Hello everyone, welcome back to Brian's Tech Tips. Sorry it's been a while, I haven't had a lot of stuff break on me lately. So it's a good thing for me, but no videos to make. So today I am replacing an alternator on my Chrysler 300 5.7 Hemi. It's a fairly straightforward project. The alternator is still charging, but it's making a whining noise, which means the bearings are going bad. Now, if you have a whining noise, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the alternator. It could be the alternator, idler bearings, basically anything that's run by the belt has a bearing on it. Now, to do that, to diagnose which one it is, because you're never going to figure it out because it sounds like it's squealing for everywhere, if you use an automotive stethoscope, what you do is you put these on your ears. Sure you figured that out, like a doctor. And then you just put this on top or close to the belt, anywhere as long as it's not on the spinning part. You don't want, that's just bad. You'll break something. You just have to be touching it basically, and you'll hear it. It'll make a whining noise. It'll either be quieter or louder, but you'll know as soon as you hear that whining noise where it's coming from. It's pretty straightforward. Now, the first thing we have to do is disconnect the battery. That is a must when replacing the alternator. And then you're going to just use some simple tools. Now, to remove my serpentine belt, I'm going to try my new tool, but you don't need this. I bought it because I wanted it. You can use a 3/8 ratchet. I'll show you exactly where that goes, how to get the belt off, everything. But you don't need a fancy tool for this. You're probably going to want a 15mm for the bolts on the alternator. You can see this bolt, but you can't see these two. We'll get them. And I'm going to use my electric ratchet because it's just good. I love that thing. So let's get to disconnecting the alternator. So if you don't know, the battery's in the trunk. Pop the trunk. Make sure to leave the trunk open because it won't be fun if you close it and can't get it back to open the trunk. Without battery power, you can't open the trunk very easily. You'll have to crawl through the back seats. So, pull it in. You can see the battery in there. Now, all you need is a 10mm. Loosen that bolt. Now, you only have to disconnect the black cable. You don't have to do the red one. And make sure that that's not touching the terminal at all. Move it over. And remember, don't close your trunk. Now, I decided I'm going to remove my cold air intake tube to get to the tensioner down there. Just that bolt, that bolt. It's also really easy on stock stuff. You'll figure it out if you have stock stuff. Disconnect this, loosen that, loosen that. All right, super easy. Make sure you don't lose any clamps. Just push them on. You just have to move that out of the way. It doesn't have to be completely disconnected. But now you can see the tensioner. I'm not sure how to. Oh, and the reason I took that off to make more access for this is because I have a giant radiator which pushes these fans out more, which gives me very limited space. Okay, if I leave it like that, perfect. looks like. I can move the fans at least a little bit. Guess I need to turn it the... Oh. Okay, I got that in there. Now, if you do this with a 3/8 ratchet, you just put that end in the other side. And then you can move it and the belt is loose. And then you should be able to take the belt off that alternator. Perfect. So I also decided I'm going to remove this upper radiator hose. It'll give you guys something to see and it'll get out of my way. You probably don't have to do that, but honestly, sometimes it's just easier to do it and get things out of your way so you can see and feel a lot better. I'm just going to use some pliers. And then it has the exact same kind of clamp on the other side. So I'm just going to do that. You don't need to see that. And then it might come off with a little struggle, but just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Not that bad of a mess. I just put some plastic stuff under there, catch it. Also, if you want to avoid a really big mess, you can use these super absorbent pads and put them where you think it'll land. So unfortunately, I won't be able to show you how to get the bottom 2 bolts because you can't see down there and the camera's in my way. But the easiest way to get to it, it feels like, is with a 3/8 ratchet with a 15mm on it. And they're just 2, like right about here. You'll have to feel them. You won't be able to see them. And I'll be right back after I get those 2, and I'll show you how to disconnect all the wiring and that stuff. But you're just going to have to feel for those 2 bolts under there. Really not a huge deal because you do have a decent amount of working space though. All right, we got those 2 bolts out. And all I used was my 3/8 ratchet. I didn't even use the electric ratchet because it wouldn't even really fit in there. You might struggle a little bit, not gonna lie, but it wasn't too bad. But I'm gonna give you a tech tip. Don't do this bolt first, because if you break these free, you can spin them by hand. But if that bolt's out, you won't be able to spin these by hand, and it just won't be fun for you. You'll still have to use a ratchet the whole entire time. Not something I want to do. But now I'm gonna use my electric ratchet. Now I get to use my electric ratchet. Maybe that's a bad idea, with my brake lines being right there. And of course it was a bad idea. I'm gonna move the camera so I can get that out. All right, I couldn't get it out with the camera in the way, but super easy once the camera wasn't in the way. Our next step is disconnect some wires. Now this red tab will go back and then you'll be able to push down. So you can see we got the red tab pushed back. I had to use a screwdriver. Then disconnects, and then of course the other one has a cover. Let's see. So you push these 2 back, these 2 little tabs, and the cover will come off. And let's figure out what size that is. So this bolt that you have to get off next is just a 13 millimeter. And you want to pay attention to the orientation of this wire. It's facing up. So when this was bolted in, the wire was facing directly up. That was a pretty easy job for a newer-ish car, I guess. But there she be. Okay, so the job is now to put in the new alternator. Pretty straightforward. So, probably want to do that green wire first. Okay, guess I should have grabbed the bolt. I'm not a real genius. I switched to a 1/4 ratchet just because it's a little bit smaller. Tightened up. Now, you should, with a wire brush, clean off this terminal. I've actually done that recently, so I'm not going to do it again. But if you have a wire brush, clean it up. It'll help with electricity flow. And we need to put this up. That'll be kind of hard to do. I'm going to wait on putting on the gray thing until I have it at least semi-on. Now make sure when you're bolting this on, you don't pinch this wire. Grab one bolt, and this time we're going to do the top bolt first. Make life a little easier for ourselves. Okay, we got the top bolt in. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to move you guys so I can get the bottom two in, but you got them out, you'll know how to get them in. I have faith in you. Okay, we have the alternator in. We tightened all 3 of these bolts. I'm sorry, I'm not going to torque all these bolts because I don't know what the torque spec is, and I can't reach the 2 on the bottom with a torque wrench. I know some of you will hate me. I'm sorry. It'll be okay. If you want to torque them, you can. Just make sure they're snug. It was easier to put this gray clip on when the alternator was actually on. Get everything much easier. Just kind of pushes on this black part right here where I'm pointing at. And then I've decided that I am going to replace my idler pulley. Oops, sorry guys. Which is right there. And I'm going to replace my tensioner pulley. These pulleys have about 140,000 miles on them. The water pump's actually pretty new. So I guess I'll include that in the video. It's pretty easy. I'll show you how to do it. So this bolt for the idler pulley is just a 13 millimeter. Sorry if you can't see it. Let's see. There. I mean, just one bolt. There we go. I switched to this just to give me more clearance between the fans and all the other stuff. Ratcheting wrench. Okay, I didn't think you wanted to watch me unbolt one bolt for a long time. There it is, 113 millimeter covered in coolant. Then we will get the tensioner out. So for this one, I'm just going to use my Harbor Freight Quinn extendable breaker bar. I know, so exciting. Good old Harbor Freight. But this one's going to be a 15 instead of a 13. Well, that was unusual. It's actually a 16. Normally, Chrysler is 13, 15, and 10s for most projects. Oh, that was way easy. I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me spin out this bolt. It's one bolt, and then it will pop off. All right, I'll film it taking it out just to show that it's pretty easy. Oh, just gonna fall. One bolt. Boom, boom. Now, I'm not gonna replace this tensioner part, but I am going to replace this. Yeah, you can hear that. That definitely needs to be replaced. You can even feel that it has some slop in it. Good thing we're replacing it. Okay, so we got this out of the car. It sits in the car like this, so you can't get to this bolt. All you have to do, I'm going to use an impact. I'm going to pause it because I'm sure you don't want to listen to that. So we impacted it off. And comes right off. So we'll definitely replace this. I mean, you can, yeah, bad. I wonder if these are the same. Look the same. I wonder if these have been replaced before. You can see on this one, there was a little bit of grease starting to come out. So this one's on its way out too. And it's not very easy to spin. This one's too easy to spin. All right. Let me go get the parts and we'll put it back together. I'm also going to throw on a new belt. All right, I got all the parts and I'm ready to throw this thing back together. Decided to do a new upper radiator hose. Here's the part number. It's from Gates. I got a new belt, also from Gates. There's the part number. And I did Dayco, idler, and tension pulleys. They are both the same part number. And yeah, we're good to go. Just open these up and put them on. And even though they have a different bearing color, sorry, can't see them, they are the same. And I checked multiple places. And just to put this one on. I think there's a little bit of Loctite on there, but no big deal. And then to torque this down, I'm just going to put it in my trusty vise. All right, set the pulley on, and I'm going to put on just a little bit of blue Loctite. And then I am going to torque it to 20 foot-pounds. We got the wrench at 20 foot-pounds. Perfect. Now we'll go over to the car. For the idler pulley, it's the same thing. It's just this and this. And a little bit of blue thread lock. And this pulley just goes back down here right under the thermostat housing. And then you just torque that pulley to 20 foot-pounds. Good to go. And then, so to put on the tensioner pulley, there's this little lining up tool. Well, not really a tool, but it guides it in so it's in the correct position. Then there's a hole right there that it fits perfectly into. And remember that this is a 16mm bolt, and I'm going to use another little bit of blue Loctite. We have the blue Loctite in. All right, we got the bolt started, and I'm just going to use this to tighten it up. I'm also going to torque that bolt to 20 foot-pounds. All right, we have everything back together. The hard part is going to be putting on the belt because I have barely any room with the AC condenser. So with the belt, I did the AC compressor first because I knew it would be the absolute hardest part to get done. Remember, when it comes to pulleys, you want smooth on smooth, which is the idler pulleys, and groove on groove. So this is the groove and that goes on there. So here is my very poor drawn belt diagram. This is the crankshaft, this is the power steering. No, sorry, this is the AC compressor, this is power steering, the idler pulley, and the alternator. Basically, I got this one on, do the crankshaft, and I'm gonna go this way until I reach the tensioner, and of course you have to do the tensioner last. I hope that makes sense. I'll show you when it's all finished. I can't really do it with the camera in the way. You can also find these diagrams on Google super easily for your car. Okay, sorry, I messed up. The last pulley I'm actually going to do is the alternator, because this belt goes in the tensioner pulley funny, and it is a pain. I had to do a lot of wiggling. Okay, we got all the belts on. Now, I'm gonna see if I can get you a better shot just so you can see it. All right, we have all the belts on. So what I went for first was the power steering pulley because it was the hardest to get on. Then I moved over there, and then you really have to wiggle the belt to get it into there. You might just take this all off again just to slide the belt in there. Or, you don't have to do it again since I just showed you. Put the belt on before you put this on. Then it all kind of lines up, and then do the alternator last. And the next thing is just putting on the hose and the ductwork. So we got the hose clamps switched. I'm using hose clamp pliers for this one because they're just easier to use. You can use normal pliers, but you can get these really cheap on Amazon. That's why I like hose clamp pliers. So much easier to do the pinch. And then I'm just going to do the exact same on the other side. Can't really show you because I don't have a place to put my phone. Alright, I'm just going to clean out the intake tube since it's been pretty dusty in my garage doing some body work. And then after I get it all cleaned up, I'll throw it back on. All right, we got it all cleaned up, and the last thing we have to do is put it on. Grab the wrong screwdriver. Let's tighten up this on both sides. And then don't forget that connector, or you will get a check engine light. All right, everything's back together. Got everything cleaned up. Got a new hose, new belts, new pulleys. And always double check to make sure your pulleys are perfectly lined up, or you can eat a belt. And then we just have one more thing to do. We just go back to our trunk and we make sure to put the battery terminal back on. And it is a 10 millimeter. tighten it up, just make sure it doesn't fall off. And you're finished, but you want to make sure that the battery is charging, so let's go do that. I forgot one thing, sorry. If you took off your upper radiator hose, make sure to put coolant back in it. This is what I use. You use what you want. And then just put the radiator cap back on. Okay, for a lot of Chrysler and Dodge products around 2010, you can actually get to a secret menu. Now I have the car started and I can't do this with just one hand, but you hold this button, the home button, and the music button at the same time. And I'm gonna do that and it will go into a secret menu. Now I held the button and you can see where it says software. If you press this, it will go to different things. Like you can do your 0 to 60 times, miles per hour, key chime stuff, fuel saver. Don't care about any of this. This is what I want to see. My battery is, my battery's charging. You can see that it's at 14.4, 14.5. If it's in the 12s, it's not working. You can see your coolant temperature, your RPMs. It's a pretty cool little menu. That's a little bonus for you guys. I really like the 0 to 60. But make sure that it's charging when the vehicle is on, or else it's obviously not going to charge. All right, love you guys. Have a good day.